My name is Shannon Brett and I am the creator and the curator of the exhibition Rite of Passage. I am a proud Waka Waka, Garang Garang and Bachelor person currently living in Meanjin, Brisbane. And I would like to take this opportunity to acknowledge the traditional owners and the keepers of this beautiful land that I live on and that I call home. I'm delighted to welcome you to our second panel talk today, highlighting two remarkable artists in Leah King-Smith and Jenna Lee. Hello, artists.
Hello, Shannon.
Hi. Leah, can we start with you? I'm so energised by your work in Rite of Passage, and I'm also very eager to see your new work in the coming years and how you maintain this feeling of this lightness and this spiritual acknowledgement and being together with yourself and your ancestors upon land and country. Can you please tell us a little bit about yourself and your life as an Aboriginal woman, artist and educator?
Oh, thank you for the invitation. Okay, I'm a Bigambul woman. I trace my ancestry through my mother's people. And currently I'm, as well as being a visual artist, I am an educator at QUT, and I teach mostly first years and 2D art processes like collage and printmaking and that kind of thing. But I've also been tasked with the role of I guess it's kind of an unusual title, but it's the Indigenous lead in creative industries in teaching and learning. So I'm tasked with the role of being able to look at curricula, the various forms of curriculum, and consider ways of embedding Indigenous creative practices and knowledges and cultures into those curricula.
Yeah, wow. Fascinating. And also, similarly, Jenna, with you, I watch your journey and I think that you're really learning through your research, also your current life and your lived experiences and how you view this invaded place that continues to be colonised by white people. I also see your work as like this evolving series, which is exciting as a viewer to celebrate. Can you tell our audience about your artistic cultural journey thus far as a 20-something living during these times, and especially as a queer woman?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Larrakia, Karijari and Waterman. But importantly to my practice, I also have mixed Asian heritage of Chinese, Japanese and Filipino, as well as Anglo-Australian. So those kind of, I guess, three categories of overlapping identity really inform a lot of my work. And then also being queer and having been in a same-sex relationship fairly long term, it's always been really interesting to me not seeing myself represented anywhere, and not seeing people like me, faces like me, stories like me. So I kind of thought my art is a great opportunity for me to not only create that space for myself, but also through the process of, like, really excitingly had other people come to me and tell me how they have felt the same things, or they are really excited to see works like mine because they can see themselves in it. And I think that that's been the most rewarding thing for me.
That's really like something that's so great that you're noticing also so early in your career. So it's setting up the foundations, particularly for being a role model. And are you enjoying moving through these different mediums and exploring new possibilities with those?
Yeah, definitely. I think being a part of a show like Rite of Passage so early in my art career has been an incredible opportunity, but I'm also still really experimenting with practice and material and really finding, at the moment I'm very paper-based, but kind of really getting to know that material and moving in different spaces And getting a chance to explore that in a public realm is really exciting as well, because you do get a lot of feedback, which is really important, I think, to an art practice, is to actually have it out in public and have people react to that, and especially curators and other artists, to have conversations around works.
Oh, fantastic. That's so exciting, what you have ahead of yourself. I just know that everyone's really keen to follow where your career is going next. I think so. What I'll do now is I'm going to take a look at both your works as part of Rite of Passage. Let's have a look here. I have a slideshow of still images, and we'll have a look at your work first, Leah. I'll just get these images up now. So can you see this screen?
Yeah.
So evocations, digital video. Let's have a look here. So this work was created this year and first seen at Rite of Passage. And here's your incredible film work, stills of, and which I had projected onto a large wall, and it measured 4 meters by 5 meters in this large space. Can you please share with us the premise of this work and also the journey of this work?
Yeah, well, thank you, Shannon. It's interesting when you began to introduce me. You mentioned the almost, you didn't use the word ethereal, but the kind of lightness and the way in which the work affects, I think, the senses and
it does.
So that is wonderful, and I so appreciate your feedback there, or you mentioning that, because very few people can talk about it in those terms, and indeed when we took students through to the work when it was showing, there was more of a talk about its principles as far as how it might relate to abstract expressionism or 21st century abstraction, you know. And while those principles are there, there's so much more taking place. And at the beginning of the video, like for everyone who will see this work, they will see it as images that are single exposure images. They're photographs, basically, but they're done over a little amount of time, which wouldn't seem very much, but in photographic terms, it's a supposed long exposure. And while they may look like there are several layers even to some of these, they are just one exposure. But I'm moving with the camera, and I'm embodying myself. It's like an embodied enrichment, I suppose, in country. So this particular project has come out of an invitation to join a community of artists, Indigenous and non-Indigenous, across the Moreton Bay region, the islands and the various places on the edges of the mainland as well. So it's the particular group, I think they're called Mudlines, so at least there's an exhibition of the group happening soon at Redlands Art Gallery, and it's titled Mudlands. So on country, I see myself as an I feel Aboriginal country. I see Aboriginal country. You know, this idea of seeing is actually far greater than just what we use with our eyes, and so I wanted to translate that feeling of being on country rather than picking up sticks and making a little sculpture. While I mean that's a tremendous activity for the artists who are working on country and feeling that presence as well. I wanted to bring in a kind of a high resolution camera only because I thought, well, what would happen if an artists do ask that? What would happen if I took my big studio camera and moved it around in this space rather than touching it in any other way? And and I was quite surprised, and I thought, oh, these look pretty good. And so we had a 3 or 4 hour exhibition. It was this showing of work that everyone was doing at one of the artists' place on Canoipa, on the island of Canoipa, and I thought, oh, gee, that's pretty good. You know, I'm working with my partner who's doing the sound for it as well. And when your invitation came, I thought, oh, look, I'll just bring him along and we can yarn about him. But I had something else completely in mind. And when I showed them to you, you went, like you almost lost your breath. And I thought, oh, this is all right. You know, it's very hard to see your own practice inside your own practice, if you know what I mean. And that's like that comment about it's so important to have other people yarn about your work and show perspectives that they're seeing as well, you know. So that was really delightful. And then when you said, because I think there's about 33 pictures in this, you know, there were a couple of hundred that I took, but 33 in this particular exhibition, that could fill that gallery if they were large scale.
Oh, absolutely.
Because it's a high resolution.
Yep.
And then the question is, why not photographs? Why do it like this? And I think that beautiful evocation of light because of the projection is just so powerful and so telling too, because it is associated with what I'm doing with light and time and seeing the place as having energy of light and my own interaction with that, which is really wonderful.
And I think it with you, in the sense of being in that place, you wanted to take it away. You didn't want to leave your work in that space. I think that was the difference between your work and the other artists' work at that particular, would you call it a residency? Yeah.
Yeah, there's been various, probably over the last 2 or 3 years, we've been going over to Canoipa on and off and just having gathos and working in the space. At one point we had an exhibition and the locals were invited to come and walk around the area and see the works themselves. So that was, there's been various points of entry and you know, exhibition, I suppose. The one at Redlands pretty soon, I think the end of October, in the new gallery space at Redlands.
Oh, so exciting.
New gallery space. No, I'm getting confused with Redcliffe, sorry. At
Redlands.
There's also a new space at Redcliffe that I'll be showing some work soon. So sorry, I've got a little.
I'm happy about that one.
But the group is showing, so we'll be showing this work. I'll be showing it with sound compositions that my partner has done, and that'll be another kind of iteration of the work, and it will be in contrast. Like I've invited, because we're baffling it as well with mobile walls. I've invited anyone else in the exhibition to put work on the wall. You know, like indeed how you've organised this space, and if you stand back a little bit, you see the reflection of the work of some of the other works in the show. So I thought we might exploit that and see if any other artists want to work with that.
Fantastic.
idea.
That's great. I just want to comment on what you briefly brought up just before when you started speaking about your work here. I'm remembering that tour that we did, and I was standing, if you have a look at this photograph, I was standing close to the back wall facing the students. What years were they? Were they second? Were they first years? They were first years.
First semester, first years.
Oh, that's right. It was before lockdown, and I just felt that I wanted to express with the students how emotional this work is, and I did use those words, the emotions, how alive the work is, and how it exists. So for anyone looking at the work now, these are still shots the work is a video, very much a moving film with no sound at this point. And it's, for me, the work was really a contemplation, and it was a contemplative space within the exhibition where it actually was. So I wanted to explain to the students that this work has a feeling, it has an emotion in it, and it is alive. And I think that the students did really respond well to that. It's just, I think as first years also just understanding that the work does have this another level that they may not be reading about.
Oh no. And that's interesting. In fact, one very enthusiastic student decided to replicate the process, because I tend to not be secretive about how I go about things, and I'll explain, especially if a student asks, and I'll explain, yes, you have to close the lens down, it's during the day, but rah 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 rah. And she ended up doing some little probably low res versions of it where she was good. So I thought that was interesting, in that there's that technical aspect which anyone can pick up and do, but I think there's something very important about Aboriginal people showing the way, whatever that is, if it's political, if it's important to, like, for instance, you know, you're talking about the commemoration of Captain Cook. Yay, you know, this is a great celebration for Australia, and some of the kind of unsavoury comments from certain people I won't mention, but anyway, that it's important that these history is so important to keep retelling, because nothing really, it's still relevant, I suppose, is what I'm trying to say. There's so much that's still relevant, and it's still relevant to listen to Aboriginal people telling their stories, whether it be from a musical point of view, or visual art point of view, you know, writing and that kind of thing. So many different types of creative practices, especially creative practices, which is what I'm interested in. They're so enabling, and they can draw out so many types of stories from so many different ways, and that it won't ever end. It's one of those situations that we find ourselves. It's both. It's conflicting in that there's so many issues today in terms of suicide rates and the population of Aboriginal people in Australia, and etc. There's so many issues, but also we have the avenues and agency to be able to bring things to people's conversation, you know, and awareness.
Absolutely.
So it is that kind of bittersweet situation we find ourselves.
Yeah, it is bittersweet, you know, and I see that this is your vehicle, the vehicle that you're using to portray your feelings and your thoughts about these issues. Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
And yes, I'll let you go. Yeah.
Sorry.
I was just going to briefly say that the photography is a handmaiden to the whole idea of exploitation. Let's just put it that way. And the history of photography and the way in which it's used to exploit peoples to this day. And so I think it's my own form of activism to get in there and kind of contextualize it and shift perspectives.
And perhaps decolonize as well.
Yes. That's the juicy word for it. Yeah.
Thank you, Leah.
Thank you, Shannon. Thank you.
So I'll move on to Jenna, your work, Unbound Passage. So this work was created last year and specifically for this exhibition. And what an exciting adventure that we've all had with this artwork. Can you share with us the story and the literal journey of this work?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the first important thing about it was when I received the email from Shannon asking me if I'd like to be a part of the show. I had just moved to London, and so I felt very much like, yes, absolutely. I needed to be a part of the show because I was living in the UK in the lead up to the 250. And so we did all of our communicating, obviously via, long distance and email. But I think being in the UK really got me thinking a lot about that distance between myself and between Australia, particularly in the lead up to this event. And so that got me thinking a lot about journeys and the way that we take journeys. And I think there was so much focus in the lead up on the Endeavour, and there was that Endeavour replica that was meant to go around Australia. And so it got me really thinking about boats. And so this work primarily started there, and then we built layers on that. And the boats are 350 red canoes, which represent both the First Nations vessels that were journeying within Australia and in our surrounding oceans, but also the boats of other people who visited Australia prior to Cook, and importantly, Larrakia people had trading relationships with Macassan people who were Indonesian or islands around Indonesian traders, and we actually had trade relations with China where we were trading sea cucumber or trepang. So for me, it was really important because this is something really wonderful. We had, relationships internationally, but yet it's just not something anybody knows. So then that brings me to the one boat. So there's 251 boats in this installation, and the one boat represents the Endeavour, but it also represents, I guess, the one was me questioning why this boat, why when so many boats have visited Australia or have been crafted by First Nations people, why is this one boat what we put so much on? But at the same time, it's the only boat where I use Larrakia ochre. So in a way, it was potentially, like you were saying, I was trying to reclaim that little bit of the story and say, well, this is actually what I want to focus on. And so the one boat, the little white boat that you can see, is the only one that has kind of that tall ship fold, but at the same time has the ochre. So for me, the work, the paper vessels, which importantly are all made out of pages of a history book about Cook, a children's history book, were really wanting to kind of interrogate stories and what stories we place importance on. And then the final element, which much like Leah, happened in conversations with Shannon. I had wanted to install it in a certain way, which wasn't possible in the gallery, which was fine and a wonderful learning experience. But Shannon said to me, what about projection? And I thought, oh, okay. So I went to Plymouth, which is where the Endeavour left the UK on its voyages, and I filmed the waters. And for me, it was about these boats making that trip again. But I wanted to, I think similarly to how Leah is speaking, there was something I wanted to capture the essence of water and put it to give those boats context. And so it's a moving image work. I think there's about 4 different clips of various waters that are projected.
So good. Yeah. I think this work has so many layers. For starters, coming from you and out of our discussions about how to build the work. What are the next steps to take for the work? Let's look at colour. Let's look at different ways to present the work. And that's also part of what the museum and or gallery space can offer as well. So these are like really great conversations for us to have. But I think the outcome is not only a conversation that's coming from you, it's a conversation that people as viewers are having with themselves. So yeah, I just think, and here for perspective, is the size of the work, which is this work is stunning.
Can I just add, guys, that Jenna, the photographic records of them are beautiful too. So as a series of photographs, from the photographer's point of view, they're just stunning. So photographically lovely. All the other levels, but yeah.
It photographs beautifully. Yeah, but I just feel like there's so many levels to this work. And I have a question. I just think regarding your practice overall, in what way does your work speak? Like, does your work speak, do you think, to a society of colonizers 250 years on? Is that what you're doing? Like, are you educating? Is that your purpose?
Potentially. I'm a lover of knowledge. I really do love. I love our history, and I do. And I think there's a lot of people potentially around my age, or that they say, we didn't learn it in school. And I thought, well, yes, that might be true, but now in the age of information, we can learn these things. So I didn't learn these things that I'm presenting in school either, but I think there is an element of wanting to educate people, but I think it's potentially twofold. I want to have people to have conversations around my works about things that they might not be thinking about. But I think primarily I'm always thinking of my community and people like me, and I just want us represented. And I think the education that can happen to them, for want of a better word, mainstream audience, might just be a bonus. That is not what I'm seeking to do, but if it can happen, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, that's so great. I'd just like to, I think, voice that the experience that we've shared throughout this time, I think, has been like a really cultural experience. I mean, all of us. It's one of sharing and caring and lots of great yarns about what we're doing to contribute and how we can each voice our concerns about the world. And it's like a conversation that we've had over a period of time, which is truly what collaboration is. And in this instance, it's materialized as these artworks. And that's, I guess, testament to your journeys as artists. And it finalizes this journey when you're having a particular conversation, I find, in this resolved artwork, well, for most of the time. And I think that by resolving these conversations through artworks and texts, and Jenna, like with your work, literally using the text as a materiality, it's a way to decolonize the grip that whiteness attempts to hold over us. Do you think that we're, like, with works such as yours and exhibitions like these, we're merging closer to equality? Leah?
Well, it depends on what sort of equality you're talking about, I guess. I think non-Aboriginal people, non-Indigenous people, many of them suffer inequality in various other ways, you know. So it does depend on that context that you're talking about. I think the most important aspect of, like you were saying, about being in that exhibition and the experiences that people have had of it could only be because there is this unifying experience that they have coming out of it. Because every perspective is important, and every Aboriginal perspective is important, every Torres Strait Islander perspective is important. And when you've got this amazing, it's like a big symphony of all of these amazing voices, telling so many stories that are so heart-wrenching and entertaining, and there's just such an incredible enrichment that takes place, you know. And so that's all we can do to to offer. But when it comes together in such a collective way, I think it's a very, very powerful turn toward that idea of equality. It's becoming more and more on our in our psyches, I suppose, in my education space that I'm in, but it's not that the issues of inequality and disempowerment aren't there, and it's a matter of consciousness raising. It's a matter of being able to put things on the table and say, let's talk about this. Yes, because when coming into 2020, I thought, all right, you know how you have a New Year's resolution or something, and I'm thinking, oh, well, 2020, that's about balance. It's about balance, and ever since it's been about imbalance, you know, and they're very fine. You know, they go hand in hand, of course, balance and imbalance. And so equality, inequality, it just has to be part of the conversation.
Absolutely. Oh, well said. And Jenna, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm very happy that you went first, because that was really beautifully said. And I think I ebb and flow between feeling really hopeful that things are getting better, and then I think you kind of look at what's happening around in the world and you just get really fatigued by everything. And I think especially kind of globally what's happening with minority groups, with the Black Lives Matter, and we've got deaths in custody. It makes me kind of very disheartened. I don't know if that's a word, but you know, it's fatiguing, and I disheartened. Thank you. I think if you'd asked me that question, you know, 6 months ago, I would have been very optimistic, and I think the last 6 months have maybe changed me a little bit, which is a part of being, I guess, younger. Yeah.
Thank you. So what we're going to do now is we're going to wrap up our conversation, which was initially going to be a brief conversation. Thank you so much for joining me this evening. And I'd just like to thank you both sincerely for being part of this very important project. And I'll say goodbye for now, and I will speak to you soon.
Oh, it's been so wonderful working with you. Thank you, Shannon.